But this is something that I've been thinking about a lot, because in our world of, I guess you could say, media, conscious media, podcasting, there's a lot of people where when I hear them speak, they have like the million followers and they have everything on paper that looks good. But then when I hear them speak, there's something in my field of coherence that doesn't absorb. It's like my soul, my body, my field won't allow me to absorb what they're sharing, because maybe it's the redox system that Zach Bush talks about. I don't know. There's something within me, like a knowingness that knows what they're sharing isn't true, or they haven't embodied it yet.
Isn't embodied.
This is what I was speaking to with your boundaries. I think one of your most powerful gifts, it's not only the boundaries, right, where you're willing to say no, but you have a really high level of discernment. You know, that tuning that you have, right, of kind of calibrating situations, people, ideas, podcasts, whatever it is that you're looking at. It's a real gift to be able to have that. Most humans, I would say, including myself, can be very easily duped by falsehood.
Sure.
Because it's just, you know, it's a shiny thing. It's like, oh, this sounds interesting, and we can get led down some paths. I think you and my wife, Allison, are probably the two people I know whose bullshit detectors are the most finely tuned.
It can go the other way, though.
Sometimes I'll even think you're like a little overly skeptical. Sometimes we'll be in a group and you don't hide it. Josh will be sitting there and he's like,
just analyzing.
I've already experienced that with
full hypervigilance.
in our group that we have.
Sizing up. I mean, I've seen you do this a number of times where you're kind of sitting there and it's like, you're not even trying to hide it. You're just kind of squinting going, I don't know. I'm going to wait and see. But, you know, I mean, I think if you combine that with open-mindedness, right, where like you might be met with like a little question and a little doubt in someone or something, right? And that's, sometimes it's going to be on point, sometimes not.
Yeah.
But if you have that discernment also with an open mind where you're willing to feel into how much of your resistance is your own stuff versus the empirical evidence of the level of truth or integrity that you're witnessing or experiencing.
Sure.
I really admire you in that as someone who, you know, I've had to work a lot on my kind of naivete and gullibility.
Same.
It's like the shadow side of empathy.
Our heart chakras are too big, bro.
Yeah, I'm like super empathy, super compassion. And I think all those years I spent in addiction recovery, I mean, I've seen people that are in really dark places. I mean, borderline possession type stuff. And I could see the light way, way, way back in the back of their eye, you know? And it's like, if they just have a modicum of willingness and humility, I mean, I've seen people come back from the dead, literally. And so, which is beautiful to be able to have that, right? To look at someone and have that forgiveness for them and empathy for them and understanding, but and that open heart and the love that I just have for everyone, regardless of even how evil they might be. The shadow side of that is like giving people too much of the benefit of the doubt and opening myself up to vulnerability, you know? Which wasn't as catastrophic when I was single, but that's really come to light in my marriage, where I'm, you know, the gatekeeper of our union and the gatekeeper of our temple, our home. And, you know, one of the great gifts I've learned from my wife, who like you has incredible discernment, is like, don't be gullible. You know, it's cool, be loving, but also the funny thing, I want to say this one more thing, something I've been working on lately is because my heart is really open and I, you know, when I look in someone's eyes, it's like I just see them, who's behind it. And that sometimes creates a dynamic wherein boundaries start to get eroded because the person for whom I'm opening my heart and showing that love might misinterpret that as something other than what it is. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of, it's difficult to articulate, but it has to do with that boundary. So it's almost like I'm invited to learn how to modulate my heart without closing it, but without just blindly and naively opening it to the whole world and creating a vulnerability for myself or for my wife in that case, or for, it's actually not loving to allow someone else to cross a boundary. Right? Like boundaries are actually an act of love for all parties involved. Even if I'm setting the boundary for you, it's an act of love. It's a mature love rather than just like, oh, we all sing Kumbaya and everyone's okay. We're all unconditionally lovable. Yes, and people have a lot of character defects. And if someone's unconscious, they can be very dangerous.
Totally.
I before you go, because I can feel you wanting to go. Okay, so
Let me jump in.
The shadow side for me has been hypervigilance. So I have hypervigilance at times, even challenging you on terrain and virus, which we're going to get into.
I'm so happy to go there.
Because we get to flesh that out, right? So I grew up in an environment where my dad was intellectually powerful, and I had to learn how to survive by being intellectual. And so my biggest work in this world is actually to embody peace, because I know that really only true power comes from peace. And so when I ask questions or when I dig in, I'm aware of that residue of the hypervigilance from my childhood conditioning. And if I had to veer on one side, I think what's even gotten me to this place where we get to sit at this table together has been me seeing people for who they are, and paradoxically, also noticing if they have a true heart-based intention or not. And do I have it wired? Fuck no. I would say I probably always veer towards the side of hypervigilance, as to which you speak, but that's gotten me to this place. And so my maturation is being called forth to have a more open heart and to be more open-minded to virus and terrain. And even the way that water teaches water.
Can I blow my snot on you?
So that's there.
See what happens.
Wait, what did you mean by that? Blow my snot on you?
Can we share a handkerchief?
Please wipe it on the beads. But please, counter that.
Yeah. Well, what we're talking about here is the balance of wisdom and love, and that's where all true power comes from, is the confluence of wisdom and love, or masculine, feminine. There's an interesting passage I was reminded of when you were talking, Luke, from the Law of One, where Ra is describing how positive and negative beings interact in the universe at different density levels, and negatively polarized entities, dark beings, like to come to third density planets like this one, because this density is what they call the density of the choosing, or the choice, where every soul is here to decide, do I want the dark path or the light path? And you keep reincarnating here until you make that choice. And so they say this is the feeding ground for negative entities, because they like to take advantage of the neophyte. And so when a third density being is coming into their chosen path of the light, there's a moment of time where they're very easy to take advantage of, because they're trying to emerge into love and activate the fourth center, which is the heart chakra. So you're trying to become a being of love and love everyone and forgive everyone. And the negative beings are like, this is a little entryway for me, because this being wants to accept everyone. So there's some open doors there. And so it's not until we infuse our love with wisdom, which you could say is discernment, that we become truly powerful, because now our love can be used in the ways we want it to be used and not be taken advantage of anymore by the darkness, which that's all the darkness can do, is take advantage of things. It has no power in and of itself other than the power it takes from others. So I'd like to answer your initial question. I kind of see our planet dividing from light and dark right now, because we're in this huge planetary upgrade, this great awakening. I think it really kind of kicked off in 2012. And I had an interesting experience this week. I went to a comedy show, a Shane Gillis show at the HEB Center in Cedar Park. And my wife and I walk in there, and I just spend all my time with people like you. I'm in conscious community all the time, and I'm teaching, and that's it. I don't really go out into the matrix very often. And it was such a wake-up call, man, to be in that energy, in that environment, and remember, this is where the vast majority of people still live. We're waiting in line, this 300 person line, and we're listening to the guys in front of us talking, and this guy's like, yeah, I popped a half an Adderall at 4:30, and then a full Adderall at 7, and then I had 4 shots of espresso at 9, cool. And then I did this and that, and he's describing his day and to get what he has to do to get through his work day, just to have his night out with the boys and just living to fight another day. And
to be able to go pound 16 beers at the comedy show.
Exactly,
yeah,
bro. I walk into this HEB Center, and everywhere I'm looking, everyone has a 16-ounce beer can. I go into the bathroom, and every guy in the urinals is chugging beer, and everyone has this numbed out, dissociated look on their face. And it just hit me everyone here wants to dissociate from life. That's why they come to these events, to drink and be with their friends. They want to forget about their life, because they're plugged into the matrix. It's so painful. They can barely afford to live. And I think we're just at this nexus point in our planet where there's a line of demarcation being drawn, because our planet, according to the law of one, has graduated to the fourth density positive, which requires a 51% or greater service to others orientation. So 51% of the people on the planet at least have to be more loving than not for the planet to graduate. So apparently our planet just barely made that graduation point, but there's a ton of negative karma on our planet right now that needs to be healed and purged over the next few centuries probably. And it seems to me like when this happens, probably on every planet in the universe, the source intelligence creates this really strong dividing line between those who've chosen the light and those who maybe haven't made their choice yet, don't know that there is a choice yet, and those who've made the choice for darkness. Everyone in that group doesn't belong on the new earth, right? So gradually they're going to have to phase out of this planet. And that just means like when their incarnation ends, they can't come back to this planet again. They have to go to another planet to continue their life cycle because this planet has chosen the path of the light. And that's just the way I see our society right now, is that it's very harsh to be in our world as a being of light because it's supposed to be. We're supposed to feel averse to these systems and to disconnect from them and build our own communities because the old world is crumbling. It's been transcended at this point and we're moving into a new earth. So there's going to be some flames going up for a while.
What I think, the way I relate love and wisdom is that love is what we are. Love is what those people are, and wisdom what is required by us until those people figure out that love is what they are. You have to have the wisdom in place because you have to be able to set boundaries with people who don't realize who and what they are.
Yep.
And that goes
said.
for other people who are, still on the journey of figuring out who and what they are. That's why boundaries are
and also
required.
basically, let's just remember we're better than all those people. So there's that. No, just kidding. Aaron, you're the resident biblical scholar.
Yes.
I've at various times in my life tried to read the Bible, and I can't get past the languaging. Right. So many years ago, someone turned me on to the writer Emmett Fox. He was a writer in the New Thought movement, and in fact, it was a mentor of mine early in my sobriety, and he, we would talk a lot about the history of Alcoholics Anonymous and stuff. And early, before they had their own book, which people call the Big Book, they had these groups called the Oxford groups, and they were kind of a non-denominational Christian group. And two of the main books they would read were The Varieties of Religious Experience by William James and Sermon on the Mount by Emmett Fox. Emmett Fox wrote a lot of books, but that's probably his most famous.
I've read that one.
So he gave me this book, Sermon on the Mount, and because I was so illiterate about the Bible, I didn't know it had anything to do with the Bible. Oh, wow. I wasn't familiar with that term. And then, once you start getting into the book, you realize that's what it is. So he kind of Trojan horsed that message to me. And his teachings are beautiful because he had a knack for sort of removing metaphor and dogma from biblical teachings and just got down to the core principles of like what he believed that Jesus was actually saying, right? So it's like, it's very like Vedic in a way. It's about love and it's about your thoughts. Like Emmett Fox was all about the power of the mind. But anyway, I bring that up just to share with people, like there's some beautiful teachings there. But one of my favorite Emmett Fox teachings is his definition of wisdom is a perfect blend of intelligence and love.
That's great.
And like, man, that's so good. And it speaks to kind of this thread that we've been on.
Yeah. I've heard it called applied intelligence.
Oh, nice.
Sure.
Nice.
I just want to answer your original question real quick because I have a lot of thoughts on that too. I was asked by Kelly Brogan recently, like what I think about the thinking crisis that we're in, of which I agree, we're in a thinking crisis. And you could say that's the bifurcation that Aaron's referring to that we're all kind of touching on. And if I had to categorize it in three ways, it's empiricism, which is knowing of the body, rationalism, which is knowing of the mind, and mysticism, which is knowing of the spirit. And I don't think that in this life we can ever fully know anything at all with our limited perception and senses and this illusion of duality, right? So empiricism, you employ something like the scientific method in order to falsify hypotheses, right? In order to point out, again, going back to what I said earlier, peel away what is clearly not true. Rationalism, you employ logical fallacies. So you look at people who are making arguments for why they think what they think or why their position is what it is, and you employ logical fallacies to be able to snuff out what is clearly not a logical, coherent position. So that's knowing of the mind. And it's again peeling away what is not true. And then mysticism is knowing of the spirit. And that requires that you be a clear vessel, a strong, coherent field in order to know, just sense that someone is BSing, just like you're talking about with some of these podcasts. You just get the vibe that they're not telling the truth or they're coming with malintention, right? And then the two ways that I think, especially speaking to, I'd imagine your audience is like mine, largely in the like health freedom / holistic health movement, where I think that many of us still need to be wary not to fall into traps, is being conditioned to believe that there's something outside of you coming to get you that you need to fear that you are powerless against, and or being conditioned to believe that there is someone outside of you coming to save you that you need to rally behind, that you need to outsource your power to.
Wait, Trump's not coming to save us?
I was just thinking
Yes, he is. Come on.
We're not going to make America great again?
But I think those are the two hooks where people in this movement are hooked into buying into something that is fundamentally still disempowering and not leading them back to themselves. Because I think that is the whole journey, is trying to figure out this reality based on empiricism, rationalism, and mysticism, if I had to, again, categorize it, which there's a lot of overlap between the three, but just being on the pursuit of trying to figure this place out, trying to know with childlike curiosity. That's like the whole journey of this experience, in my opinion.
I was feeling that when you were sharing, Jesus would put children in the room when he was lecturing, because children had an open heart and an open mind. And so I learned stuff from my son all the time. We just talked about this last week on your podcast. Like, my son is so pure. He's with what is. He doesn't have the conscious, unconscious filters that we have developed over life because of trauma and things that have occurred. What was really interesting in what you were sharing is you talked about 51%. The code in police doctrine for someone that's insane is 5150. So I wonder the similarity there. If we're at a tipping point of 51% of the population, that the 50% might think are insane, but we're really just waking up to the truth.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to the coherent field, incoherent field. It's as if the universe is waiting for a planet to reach even just the slightest coherent field, 51% or more, to say, okay, this planet has chosen the light path. Now we'll move them on to the next level of their evolution. And interestingly enough, it takes a planet a long time to actually make that 51% grade. We've seen that on our planet, right? Like, how long have we wandered in the sinkhole of indifference, not really choosing the light, not fully choosing darkness, but just stuck in the middle? Coherence is not easily earned, even 51%.
That 51% thing also aligns with David Hawkins' work, how he would calibrate the levels of consciousness of humanity in different countries and different, everything. The book Truth versus Falsehood does a really great job of, everything from like the Rolling Stones to Buddha, it's like all in there. But he talked about at various times in his lectures how there were, I think at one point in one of the lectures, say 8 human beings alive on the planet in their bodies that calibrate over 800, which is like way past enlightenment. Like, at that level, you really don't have to stay here. So most of them don't. Right? They're just like, poof. They just, turn into fairy dust or whatever. But the way he explained it was kind of in the tipping point that, say you have 8 enlightened beings on the planet, some of whom aren't even known publicly. It could be like your janitor or whatever, right?
Yeah.
They're just low key. Yeah. The power of those 8 people that are over 800 is exponentially more powerful than the other 8 billion people who are under 200, the level of integrity. And that's the interesting thing about consciousness and the level of love, is that love has so much more power than those energy fields that lack love. So that aligns with the tipping point of the 51-50%, right? Because it's like, what is keeping our planet from completely imploding right now? Because when we look out through a certain lens, it's so dark, right? And it's like, well, how is it not just devolving into savagery and like outright slavery? I mean, we're in a free range slavery kind of tax system, which we can talk about, where very few people are actually free in terms of the way that they live their lives. Yeah. But why isn't it even worse? And why has it, if you go back in history, as dark as it seems now, at least now it's covert slavery, right? At least now the population's being decimated by a fairly innocuous bioweapon rather than just Viking hordes coming in and raping and pillaging your shit, right?
It's a subtler slavery.
Yeah, it's trippy. So if you look back, because you think right now, wow, it's so dark, but we have come a long way from the raping and pillaging to slavery in so many different countries of so many different cultures. And you can kind of see the scale gradually climb, but where we are, it still seems quite barbaric, but it's much better than it was 10,000 years ago, for example, you know, in one perspective. It must be because of what you're describing, right? That the collective consciousness of the species of humanity is ever so gradually rising, and then the tide kind of rises with, rises all those boats.
Yes. It's such an interesting point, man, because Hawkins talks about that in Power versus Force, I think, how much power those positively polarized beings produce compared to the negatively polarized beings. I think David Hawkins says something like someone who calibrates at 500, which is the level of love. That means you're fully living from the heart chakra level, right? One person calibrating at that level is producing as much energy in consciousness as, I think it's like 600,000. It might be 1 million. People under the 200 line.
Right.
So that's why it looks so dark on our planet, because we have these light beings, like ourselves even, just kind of anchoring the planet down. But like every light being on the planet is equivalent to maybe thousands, millions of beings who are under that 200 mark. And so, yeah, it looks like almost everyone in the world is still living in the darkness. And it's kind of true, but on an energetic or frequential level, there is more light than dark on our planet. And so you can see how the evolution of our planet could just start shifting overnight if people keep waking up and really ascending their consciousness. It would only take a few 100,000 people reaching the 500 level to just overwhelm the planet with light and expose the shadows like overnight.
That's going to basically happen for anyone that listens to this podcast.
Yeah, they're feeling the infusion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm joking, but it's kind of true. I mean, that's one of the things, hold that thought. It's one of the things I think that's so cool about independent media. Right?
100%.
Despite all the censorship and all of this, like, some people like us that are on the path and we're learning, we've learned a few things, we can pass it along. We can speak freely and have long form conversations like this that are, as public as we can make them, right? Whatever reach we can kind of cultivate, they're going to have. I mean, and listening to stuff like we're talking about is 100% the basis of my awakening, my healing. Listening back in the day, it was like there were these like cases with cassettes in them, and I was listening to Stuart Wilde and Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra and a bunch of different teachers. And to reprogram my mind, I would just listen to those. And I still do this too, podcast and Hawkins lectures and all kinds of things. I would all day long when I had a job in LA where I was driving, and I would just reprogram myself. I mean, basically 24/7. I would even sleep with them on. And then they graduated to CD booklets, with like 12-part CD.
Yeah.
And then podcast came out. It was like, oh shit, I don't
it's
even
way
need
more readily
MP3s.
available.
Podcasts are changing the world.
Like the amount of information, the message that is needed to transform our individual lives and our collective consciousness as a species, it's all right there. And it's 99% free.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching today's video. I hope that you were truly blessed by it. And I wanted to let you know that I'm really excited to now be partnering with an amazing conscious supplement company called Organifi. A lot of you know that I'm also passionate about holistic health and nutrition, and Organifi has been a staple in my daily health routine for a very long time. They make the most delicious, organic, and high-quality superfood products that I've ever come across. And as you know, a healthy body is a great benefit for spiritual growth, because the health of your body directly translates to the health of your mind. Everything is connected. So feeding your body with high-vibrational superfoods straight from the earth is one of the best ways to create that environment for a healthy mind. But getting all the superfoods that your body needs in one day can admittedly be a little bit tough. And that is where Organifi can add a ton of value to your life. I personally start every day off with green, which is Organifi's really delicious blend of 11 superfoods like ashwagandha, chlorella, and moringa. And then in the middle of the day, I'll usually have a scoop of red, which is a delicious energy blend full of 13 adaptogens and antioxidants from berries to recharge your mind and body with a delicious blend of organic superfoods. Your body is an amazing organic machine, but it needs the right fuel and signals to function at its best. And Red is full of adaptogens sourced from organic herbs and medicinal mushrooms. And these are compounds that balance hormones, prime your energy pathways, and alleviate stress. So instead of crushing your adrenal system with huge doses of caffeine every day, adaptogens work with your body and give you natural, sustained energy all throughout the day. What's most important to me though about Organifi is the way that they go above and beyond to ensure the cleanest and purest ingredients in all of their products. They are USDA certified organic, non-GMO, gluten-free, certified glyphosate-free, and absolutely zero fillers. So I never go anywhere without Organifi, and I never miss a day without taking it. And Organifi is offering a super generous discount of 20% off of your entire order when you use the coupon code ABKE at checkout. So if you want to upgrade your health regimen with Organifi, you can click on the link in the description box below to learn more about all the amazing products that they offer. And I promise you that your mind and your body are going to thank you for it.